Ladies and gentlemen, I see the hall full now. Our participants are still coming in, and as they come in, let me welcome our first speaker, or our speaker for the first session this morning. This is a keynote session on relationship between psychological contract and employee commitment. Very interestingly, I had the privilege and the opportunity to meet her before the event. We were just chit-chatting, and she's a very interesting personality. She is Nadiah Abdullah. Ma'am, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. She is the CHRO of SP Sesia Berhad in Malaysia. So we have a Malaysian speaker. Talking about Nadiah, well, she comes with more than 30 years of HR expertise with focus on organizational development and change management. Her experiences span across both local and Fortune 500 multinationals in various industries with local, regional, and HQ roles. Winning regional and global awards for her contributions, this has given her both breadth and depth of understanding for the business and ability to connect business results through creative people and strategies. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and help me welcome this beautiful lady from Malaysia. She is Nadiah Abdullah, and the stage is all yours now.
Namaste, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizing chairman, Mr. Mohan Oja, I hope I pronounced it correctly, for inviting me here. This morning he said, welcome to Nepal. And I said, welcome back to Nepal, because I've been here many times. In fact, I used to work for AirAsia. I think the last time I was here was about 10 years ago. So over that period, I come here quite a lot. And also on a personal basis, I do also come here with my husband because we just love the whole culture and history. So as you can see, I'm actually wearing a traditional attire from Malaysia. I've been told that I look Nepali. So yesterday I was in Tamil and everyone was talking to me and they thought that I'm Nepali. So do you think I look Nepali, right? Thank you. Actually, I find that Nepal is very similar to Malaysia. So I am from Malaysia because I think we are a country where it's a melting pot of, all kinds of, should I say, historical cultures and so on. Because in Malaysia as well, just like Nepal, you can see all kinds of faces. So I've got my manager from my team, Afiq, you want to stand up? So who also looks like a Nepali. So in Malaysia, we have the same look, and it's just wonderful to be back here again. So when Growth Sellers actually contacted me and I said, this topic, and I thought, oh, this is fantastic because it is actually something really close to my heart. What I want to do today here is not to stand here and teach, because I think I am in a room of very capable HR leaders, and I understand some are not HR. Yesterday, I was sitting at the back to just listen up. I think there was this lady from Unilever. Is she here today? She was presenting. Yes, and I thought that was fantastic. And by the way, I used to work for Nestle, so your competitor. So I said, wow, I am definitely amongst, very capable talent in this room, and this is fantastic. Just 3 weeks ago, I was in Maldives doing another speaking engagement on another topic. Amazing, amazing. I just saw, how HR has evolved, and I'll share a little bit more. And my approach today is more of sharing, and you will see that I use a lot of photos and stories so that you can remember. Because I don't think you want to hear something that you can read from the book, right? Because all of you are HR experts here, aren't you? Okay. So let's look at, oh, by the way, oh, hang on. That's actually our office, yeah? So just a little bit on how the flow is going to be. So I will talk about psychological contract, and then moved on to talk a little bit about unboxing HR, a little bit of a story of myself, because I think from that story we can relate to what the topic is. And then we talk a little bit about pandemic, and VUCA. How many of you have heard of VUCA? Great, not vodka, VUCA, right? Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about VUCA and how it has impact HR and leadership. And then we moved on to talk about the role of leadership in making psychological contract real, because I think in the core of it, when we talk about psychological contract, I think leadership plays a very, very important role in driving employee engagement and also motivation. And lastly, I'll just relate to a case study which is from my own company. And I have 3 videos to share afterwards so that you don't get bored listening to me alone. Okay? This is basically, again, that picture is real. That's our head office in Kuala Lumpur. It's one of the corners which we call the network hub, because you will see later on when I share that we actually spend a lot of effort in employee engagement. And we believe that psychologically and our employees have to be emotionally be connected to what they do every day, so that when they come to work, it's not just about paying the bills at the end of the day. I mean, of course, who doesn't need money, right? Who doesn't need bonuses? But I want to come to work because it's meaningful to me, because it is aligned to my personal values, and therefore I feel that the organizational values and my personal values are both aligned, and I can be at my best contributing to the community at large. Yeah? So that space, we call it the network hub, because we believe for our employees it's important to connect with everybody, and we use the space. It's just, as you can see, and let me see if this, I don't think I can point because it's an LCD thing. Okay, you can see there's a screen. It's a mirror actually. So the mirror shows the space that is in that space. It's a huge area, and because we're a property developer, we have the advantage of building our own building. So when this was built, our HQ in 2014, I believe, that was before I joined, it was the first building in Malaysia that had won the Green Building Index. We have our air conditioning coming from the floor, so I'm not sure whether there are any engineers in here. And we collect rainwater at the top of our building. So if you Google out SP Setia HQ office, you will actually see a lot more there. So that actually explains also on the right where we are in terms of presence. So we have almost 48 projects in terms of sales turnover of about $1 billion USD in a year. And you can see we are present in Malaysia, in Vietnam, in Singapore, Japan, China, Australia. And one interesting fact is that if you know of London, there is this thing called Battersea Power Station. It's an old power station which we now converted into a place where, you know, there's retails, there's residents, and so on. So we're 40% shareholder for this. It's a Malaysian project in London itself. So it's supposed to be an iconic building. So if you can Google in Battersea Power Station, you will see that. So basically, we are a property developer and we're involved in construction. But I always say this, we don't just build houses. I think what we do is we build homes, because the products that we have ranges from the affordable housing of 200,000 ringgit Malaysia to maybe 3 million and 8 million ringgit Malaysia. So we cover the whole range of society. So whether you're a fresh graduate who's actually got your first pay and you want to buy a nice house for your parents who probably didn't earn as much, or you are someone, maybe like Afiq, who started working and after a few years he wants to upgrade himself, you know, and that's a happy story in upgrading and making sure that the family gets a better home. Or you're someone who's already at a certain level in society, or that you can afford an 8 million house. I mean, even I can't afford that, but we sell that house. So we believe that we provide happiness and joy by providing, by building homes and not just products. So that's just us as a company. Let me just share a little bit about my background. I know the MC has said a little bit, but I think I'd like to just go a little bit deeper because I can then connect to the topic later on. So as you can see, that picture, the first one is me running training. I'm probably one of the few CHRO who still run training simply because I love nurturing and growing. And I think when I do that, I get to touch and understand the real talent in the company. Because if not, as a CHRO, and if I'm just working at this level, I don't know the talent down below. So I still do maybe 12 days in a year, or at the minimum 6 days in a year running programs, leadership programs, like literally one full day running program, which I designed myself because I believe that if you are a HR head, it's important for you to drive the specific message of a company, but also at the same time understand the on-ground talent, because that's when I really get to know them. How many of you here actually do talent management in this room and do succession management? Can I know? Yeah, the Unilever lady is there. I'm sure Unilever does that. Okay, so talent management is so important. We have the succession planning, we call it talent council in the company, where at a high level, we then discuss who are our talent. Now, if I am not going down to the ground and I don't know the talent, I would just rely on the general managers or the head of department to say, okay, this is my talent, A, B, C, D. And sometimes, we might miss certain talent because it could be favoritism and so on. And so by doing that, I actually get to know the talent. The second picture is actually in Nepal. This was when I came in, I think 2018 probably, or 2017 with my husband. The reason I took all those pictures was to show that, you know, even as a HR person, I think we must have what's close to the heart. I don't think anyone who does HR, who don't like people, can do HR. Do you agree with me? You have to like people to do HR? Yeah? Yes? You're still with me? Great. Okay. So the others, as you can see, I don't know whether anyone in this room has worked in the same company. Anyone in this room has worked in those companies that I have? So those are the companies that I work with. I'm actually quite old. So I've worked for 30 years already. A woman doesn't tell the age, but I can tell you I'm already 54 years old. Just in case you thought I moved jobs every year because of the numbers of the logos there. Yeah, I have a 25-year-old son who's working in London, but yes. So I've worked about 32 years, and I'm an accidental HR person because I actually did international relations as a degree, and I wanted to be an ambassador. But I ended up being a HR person. But I'll tell you why, and 30 years, no regrets. But 30 years have told me a lot of things that you don't read in the personnel or the HR books. But basically, what it's saying is that I think my career had been split into 3 different stages. The first level, as you can see, the company, Sime Darby is a big conglomerate, SKF, #1 ball bearing company, British American Tobacco. I don't know whether they have it here. We sell cigarettes. Danone, which is a French company, yogurts and stuff, which is a competitor to Unilever. Nestle also. And then that first few years, I would say 15 years, where I really grew my professional foundation. And I tell you why later on. Why am I sharing? Not that I love myself so much that I won't tell you this, but I'll tell you why I tell you this story. Second level, when I became HR director of Microsoft, I was 38 years old. I was really scared, actually, but I thought, look, I have to challenge myself. And I was lucky because I had many mentors who actually gave me a lot of confidence to take the risk and just do it, right? And even if you fail, you can always go back and work for Nestle. In fact, when I left, you know, my boss says, why do you want to leave, you know? But I just wanted new experiences, and it's not every day you get an offer from Microsoft. So I was HR director for Microsoft. AirAsia, as I mentioned. Experian is a big data company. again, when I joined Experian, I actually don't like big data or data analytics, but I wanted to challenge myself, and big data is the biggest thing that was happening. This was like 8 years ago, and now I'm in Satya. And that second level actually gave me a totally different experiences, because not just as a HR person, but as a leader, there were many, many instances and stories which I will tell you later on that has shaped up on how I am actually running and driving my role to help the organizations. And I think today, every one of you who are in this room, this is what we want to do, because when you talk about psychological contract, we'll come to that slide, right? It's not just about the employment contract, what you do within your job description, but it's not easy, right, to drive that in an individual. But how do you do that? So, the topic today, psychological contract, and this is actually the first discussion I had with the organizing team. It refers to the extract agreement between employee and her employer, forming the shared obligation, expectation, and understandings that constitute a relationship. So it is a contract that is at the perceptual level and not in black and white. So basically, in short, psychological contract really means is how are you connected emotionally and how are you connected to the company that you're working, because we all sign that contract agreement on employment and say, yes, you know, I agree to join you as a company. So these are the working hours and so on. But I think really it's more than that, right? And then I just want to bring this, and that's a real picture again. It's just taken about 2 weeks ago on the 8th of, no, that was on the 15th of March when we celebrated our IWD, International Women's Day, on the same steps in the first slide. I have taken this from CIPD. I'm sure all of you, you've heard of CIPD, right? Chartered Institute of Personnel Development. So if you have not heard of it, please Google it, because if you're HR, you want to be certified by that. So it's so important that you go through their website. They've got some really good models that you can actually follow through, because it's a certification. It's basically like the ACCA for finance. This is the ACCA for HR, right? So what does CIPD says? HR is about helping an organization that creates value, and all those things that we do every day, transactional things. But what's more important is the transformational things that we do that creates the culture that forms the feel of an organization, the heartbeat of an organization, that is related to that psychological contract that we talked about just now. Help to shape the culture of their organizations and focus on what keeps their colleagues productive and engaged. When I started my career 32 years ago, I think many of you were not born probably, and because they all look so young, Mohan. My first title was personnel executive. Any one of you started your career with personnel executive? Maybe you don't want to show how old you are. See, I told you everyone's so young. I mean, today, what? You've not heard of personnel. Nobody talks about personnel. I told CIPD they've got to change it. It cannot be personnel anymore because it's HR. In fact, nowadays, people don't even talk about HR. We're now talking about HD, human development. How do you enrich lives? Because you're not just talking about HR, which is confined within an organization, but HD is about how do you link it to the UN SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And how do we actually use economic and social indicators in the country to relate that to what we do as HR in the company and link it to the business plan? So what we're doing is a lot more. I suppose everyone is HR in this room. Anybody not from HR? Can I see a show of hands? Oh, the whole table of gentlemen. So can I know which function you are from?
No, I am IT sector.
IT. So this must be the sponsor table. Ah, okay. Fantastic. So, you know, in the past, they always say finance is the co-pilot. Do you believe we are the co-pilot of the organization or the CEO? HR. Do you believe that we are co-pilot to CEO now? Not so sure. Yeah? Yes? Yes, yes, you have to be clear, because if you're not, you don't believe, my God, you're not doing a strategic role, right? Then you're going back to personnel. Okay? So, yes, that's so important. Now, I just want to show this. So if any of you have not seen, or not heard of CIPD, please go and Google. But this is basically the CIPD framework. It talks about core knowledge, core behavior, specialist knowledge. But the core of it, look at the one in the middle, right? Purpose is championing better work and working lives. Okay, you Google CIPD, you get it there. So that's basically the framework. And I've just been assessed, and so pleased that I had recently had my Chartered Fellow CIPD, and they grilled me through a 2 hours session. I was lucky because of my industry experience. I didn't have to go through the whole writing of theses and sitting in class. But 2 hours of grilling, and went through every single structure. There are 8 quadrants for the fellow. So you go in there and you use that as a guide. So today we're talking about how do we ensure that people feel not just contractually connected to the employer, but psychologically contracted to the employer. Okay, let's see. Okay, just bear with me. Quick one, I'll just tell you the story of Nadiah. So of course, this is me. Actually, these slides, I did it in one of those events they call Unhacking HR. And that was me, sorry. Oops. That was me, the one who, remember I told you I'm accidental HR, who likes traveling, photography. Actually, I would love to do Shahima's job. I wanted to be a photojournalism, but when I came back, who knows about international relations in 1992, right? Everyone says, do you have an accounting degree? Do you have an engineering degree? What discrimination? But being a government scholar, I came back and I needed money, I needed a job. I just went in and I just went for my first interview. I said, I like working with people, but actually I wanted to be an ambassador. And I wanted to be traveling around the world. I even went for a air stewardess, which they call now cabin crew interview, but it was too short, so I didn't get through. Okay, so I think that was probably a good riddance, because otherwise you won't see me standing here, right? But yes, so that's me, and I enjoyed photography, enjoy culture, everything else. So when I graduated, I thought, okay, the world is not as exactly what you want, and you get it, and reality hits me. So where do I begin? So I had lots of hopes. These are real photos that I took from my holidays. This was in Amsterdam, and I had a lot of hope. And at the age of 23, 24, you come into the working world thinking the world is going to be in a certain way. And why do I share this? Because all of us in this room, today, as we sit here, we're sitting at the other side of the table. You guys are interviewing all these fresh graduates, right? And you're sitting there like, yeah, this fresh graduate thinking the world is, all of them are smiling. Why you smile? Tell me why you're smiling and had a good laugh. Tell me why.
Because whatever you are saying is the truth. We sit at the other side of the table and we think every person that comes to an interview is fresh. They can be shaped in any way that the company wants.
Yes, and when we were sitting at the other side of the table when we were young and hopeful, we think, oh wow, But actually in reality, we didn't know the real world is much more challenging than it is, right? So, okay. So, with all that, did I move so much? Yeah, I didn't realize I was moving. Okay. Right, so personal management, remember I talked about it. So those were the days in 1940s, the Industrial Revolution, where everyone talks about the mass production and so on. So, master-slave relationship. I don't know about Nepal, but in Malaysia, our Employment Act is still called Employment Act 1955, because it was set up in 1955 when the days when Malaysia had a lot of plantation estates. And so some of the terminologies were like wages and people who deal with machines. It was still outdated. So as like all government, I better not say too much, it's so difficult to change because I am also part of the NLC, National Labour Advisory Council, as a rep for Malaysian Employers Federation. And we keep, I think this thing moves, is it, on its own? I didn't put, okay. Right, so does it move on its own? I didn't press it. Huh? Oh, it's very sensitive, so I'll take my fingers off it, right? Okay, so the world is saying, I'm actually building up so that you can see how the world has changed, right? And then there's this famous story, HR used to be all about maintaining productivity and harmony. Read the cartoon, right? And it says, wow, yeah, we're laying off, but no, don't do it on Friday, it's a wrong day. Friday is our employee appreciation day. Oh my God, it's so sensitive. Okay, what was that? You don't know, no? And then finally, this guy who was talking about it got an award for that. But the world that we're living in today is very different. And so what was that all about? Okay, let's move on. So what does it take to be HR leader in order to help drive, and I use the word help drive because many people, or many, I think all of you share this sentiment, right? I'm like taking it away from the remote. That when something goes wrong in the organizations, your GMs will say, yeah, HR, staff attrition, people resign, yeah, HR. Do you get the same feeling? Right, yeah, poor thing, poor us, right? But it's not just us. You know, I've had experiences, and you can tell Afiq, I can ask him later on, because I'm going to make him, there's no free lunch, I'm going to make him say something afterwards, right? Oh, by the way, he paid for his own trip here because he's just so hungry. And there's a story of Afiq. You heard story of Nadiah, there's a story of Afiq later on. And because when something goes wrong, they think it's HR, but what do? We actually create processes, we facilitate, but then we send them back to the functions, right? So we have onboarding programs. You're all excited first 2 days. In my company, we have this thing called the 60-day, and we bring them back because we want to ask how are they doing. And first 2 days in the company, all excited, high-spirited. Then you see them in 60 days, I don't know what happened. Some of them are still high-spirited. Some of them goes like that. Because, anyone wants to give me an answer? Because? The reality is because we know that at the workplace, you have inconsistent quality of leaders, correct? So if the leaders are not connecting and engaging with the employees, whatever you do will not be sustainable. So the second part of my story I'll share is how do we help them? How do we get these leaders? Because you only have 2 hands. If you're working at HQ and you've got so many branches, you only have 24 hours a day. You can't be visiting and going every day. You can't save the world. But you can do something to help the CEO, to help your GM, to help your whoever that is the key positions to do this. By the way, you know, you probably see some pictures of mine, not that I love myself too much. Again, like I said, I just want to flaunt and share a little bit about the pictures of my office. So this is, remember that mirror place? This is one corner. And we try to make it like a sort of a Googlish kind of a place because 67% of our workforce is Gen Y and they have different demand. So what we do is we created this space whenever I run a training, and I actually run one training, one full day on personal branding, and I get them to come down here. We have our training center, but come down here, and like a tech talk, right? And they stand in front, and there are 24 people sitting on the bench and listening to them. And I sometimes see them shivering. But you know, the most beautiful thing is when you see them grow 8 months down the road, they've grown their confidence. Okay? So that's what we want to do so that people feel emotionally connected and feel that they belong and that they can grow. So how do we do that, right? And I think you probably know it. How many of you recognize who this person is? Anyone? Tell them.
He's an actor.
He's an actor. Remember what?
Mel Gibson, I think.
Keep moving. Oh my God. Mel Gibson is from the movie Braveheart, okay? So, and I have a video of this. So, and I love this. If you have not watched the movie, just Google. You can go to YouTube, and this was, you must be maybe slightly younger than me or about my age, right? So you will see, it's amazing movie, right? Because it talks about, he's one of those early founding fathers of Scotland when they were fighting against the English, you know, England and Scotland. And he's so passionate about what he does. I won't say more, we'll have a video after when it comes to the story. But as a HR person, you got to be passionate. You're not going to be ticking the box. You've got to do the extra. And I'm saying this because you have a role to play in engaging your leaders to ensure that topic that we're talking about today, there is the psychological contract. And then passion and skill. So everyone knows who this person is, right? Except for Messi fans. Right? They're Ronaldo's haters. I'm #1 fan of, I don't support clubs. I support Ronaldo, CR7. So, but because I believe, I think most of you who knows his story, right? Because he's passionate about what he does, and he puts in the effort and time and have the skills. So when we talked about, oh my God. So when we talk about psychological contract, it's important that we also invest. We just don't talk about it. Invest in, I don't know why it keeps moving. Right? Okay. Invest in time for your people to feel that they have skills and that they feel that they are staying in the company not because they just finished the job, whatever they're supposed to do, but because they can grow. Okay? Keep going and be resilient. So I'm talking about HR, yeah? Keep going and be resilient. This picture is taken in one of his games where he had an injury and he continued on. Okay? Take the risk. And that's me basically doing the bungee jump in New Zealand. I wasn't supposed to do that. My 10-year-old son wanted to do it. Fortunately or unfortunately, he was less than 35 kg. So when you're less than 35 kg, you can't do it because it's too light. So I don't know what I was thinking as a mom, letting my 10-year-old do a bungee jump. But then I said, why don't I just do it? Because my boss used to challenge me, and I said, I will prove to him, although I was very nervous. Any one of you has done bungee jumped? You know the feeling, right? It's like suicidal, right? Isn't it? But you do it once and you don't want to do it because so that you can brag to everyone and say, I've done it. But you will never want to do it again, right? So, but yes, be brave, but I said don't be suicidal, right? And then be human, right? I think HR sometimes we're too limited by SOP, HR manual. Go and look at the manual. Look at our policies. Yes, the policies and manuals are there for you to use. But if every time we just look at the policy and manual, we don't need HR. So as a HR person, you got to be human, and we need to be humanizing every process that we do. I'll give you a story, right? I'm going to put it here so that it doesn't move, I hope. MCO, so MCO is, do you all call it MCO? In Malaysia, we call it MCO when we locked down during COVID. MCO is, Movement Control Order, yes, because he was in my crisis team, as I remember. After COVID, I had COVID and I burned some memory cells. So during MCO, we had some incidences. So as a property developer, we actually have, there are only 2,000 employees in our company, but we have about 10,000 employees within the ecosystem. Let's call it ecosystem because we have the contractors, subcontractors who employ the workers who build the houses. So these workers are not under our employee payroll, but they are under their payroll. So during the, MCO, they are not allowed to move out of CLQ, Central Labour Quarters. So we put all the workers, and most of them are foreign workers, in a Central Labour Quarters. Now, what happens was during MCO, some of the subcontractors were running out of cash. So they did not have enough food. So as a company, we ran a campaign called Food Aid, which means we then provide food from our company to all the central labor quarters and provided them, because some of them actually have families and children in there. But the guideline was that no one else from outside should go in and inside to go out. I think all of you are familiar with this. We all lived through that dark period, the 2 years, right? And so, but Malaysian being Malaysians, very strong hospitality. So the residents near the central labor quarters have been sending food. So there's this particular lady who has been sending food every day and going into the area. Obviously, our security guards or site supervisor then were not doing their job. And it so happened that one day there's one site supervisor who's very effective and doing his job, following SOP. And this lady came in and said, yeah, you know, can you make sure we have this? And she wants to go in. And the guy said, no, you can't go in. So remember, this is a site supervisor. So he doesn't speak like me. He's like, no, you cannot go in. Because if you know of site supervisors, they speak a different language. They're not being rude. It's just how they are. And they speak quite loud. And in the world of social media, that was going viral. It went around. Now, if you don't know the context and you look at the video, it looks like the supervisor was scolding this woman, and it was reputational risk for us. So what happens? He went to our EVP, Executive Vice President of that particular business unit, and also our Chief Operating Officer, and they are like, oh, this is bad, you know? This cannot be, because it doesn't reflect our culture. It's going to be bad for our brand. It goes on social media. What if it comes out? Please send out a warning letter to this employee. And you know, as a HR person, I watched that video 4 times. And I said it many times, 4 times. I watched it from beginning till the end. And I had to take the question. I said, and I had a very fierce Chief Operating Officer. So he would scream across the room, and everyone would keep quiet. But he's retired, but he's very, very fierce. I had to go in and tell him, Dato is what we call, in Malaysia you have title, you know, for dignitaries. I said, Dato, this is wrong. I watch it 4 times, and this guy is just doing his job. Because our guideline is to say, please make sure no one is to go in. And so he was just doing his job, but his bad luck was it was captured and it went viral. But I think what's wrong is that for us as an organization, we must train our site supervisors on how to respond and how to speak differently, especially when the media is there. So we did not give a warning letter. You know, the guy was, excuse my language, shitting in his pants because he thought he was going to lose his job. But all in his mind, I was just doing my job, right? And so we did not do that. And the next thing, the corrective action we did was, the next day, was to actually run a PR training by our group branding communication and train all our site supervisors how to handle such situations. And do you know what's the impact? It went around. The guy was so grateful, and the guy actually went on and said, this is what I feel about this company who's known to be caring. And that is psychological contract, because he feels that the company is human, being human, and therefore, I'm going to put in all my effort, he's still there, into this company because I could have lost my job, right? But as a HR person, you have to do your job, because otherwise, the other thing would happen, right? So being human is very important. And sometimes it means you have to intervene. Listen, have empathy, but not sympathy. Because what happens when you have too much of sympathy, then the company cannot run. It becomes ineffective. Be the change you want to see in the world. I think you all know who this person is, right? And this is, all these factors that I just shown is all for you as HR and how you do the job. Be a chameleon, because sometimes we have to play a different role. So if I'm talking to the board, my language is different. If I'm talking to my employees, I will speak the local language and come down to the ground so that they understand what I'm saying, right? So I give you another story. So in 2017, I joined the company 2016, and I did a roadshow to share with the employees on our roadmap, which I will show to you, the roadmap. Because for the first time, we're actually being transparent and show them, this is the roadmap, this is how you're going to be a hypertension. They know there is such thing as hypertension, but no one really tells them exactly how. I went to every locations, every business unit, including Vietnam, doing it with a translator. And when I have it a session with the site supervisors, I didn't do it in English. I did it in our local language. And one guy raised up his hand, a guy who was going to retire 2 years from that time. And he said, Puan is ma'am in English. For the first time, I actually understand what you are talking about, because most time people from HQ comes in and they speak English, because mind you, at the lower level, they all don't speak very good English. For the first time, I really understand it, because before this, everyone comes and have a town hall, they speak English. I don't understand what it's all about. So what does it say? Speak the language of the people so that they understand, because it's not just about delivering what you want to do, but is it effective or not? Is it coming down to the hearts of the people? So that was important. Be a chameleon, which means sometimes you can be the challenger, sometimes you can be the listener, and sometimes you just need to put your head in between, because the role of HR is to be employee champion, but at the same time to mitigate the risk for the company. Strategy matters. Be agile. I think you know this. Everyone talks about agility. What is it all about? So in my team, I tell them, later you will see in the video, being in HR is not just about doing all this SOP, paying the salary. Oh, see, I'm not even holding it, it's moving. But we have to be, I think more and more, the role of HR is to be almost like an entertainer, because the topic of today on contractual employee, on psychological contract is to make sure that our people are engaged thoroughly. How much time more do I have, yeah? Just checking. Where do I do? Half an hour? 22 minutes. Where? Where do I see the time? Ah, okay. Sorry, it's so tiny that I didn't see. Okay, so it's so important that we be agile, because more and more the role of HR is to be an influencer and marketing and pitching an idea. Keep it simple, try for change, build for long term, get shit done. Okay, get shit done. Unfortunately, that's the story. So I see all of you nodding, because that's what you do every day, right? All the dramas that you have to handle. Always have your feet on the ground. Okay, forget about that. So I got to rush through. Now, 2020 came in, pandemic came in. What happens? New norm and everything else. And VUCA. VUCA is basically, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So I'm not going to go into detail, but basically, it's the thing. Pandemic was the mother of all VUCA, right? That changes the way we do things. Before pandemic, everyone was talking about IR 4.0. After pandemic, after COVID, everyone talks about the new norm. And today is not even new norm. If you do not refresh and you do not reset, you are not going to be able to do that. And later on, you will see employee demand has been changing. Okay? HR teams now has to pivot the role, and it's become more colorful, what is expected of us. You remember, I think it's the same here. We had to be health minister, security minister, whatever minister, information minister during COVID, right? So we were never trained to do that. And I mean, like, I had to sit in the meetings. I just received news from, it's like, okay, Nadiah, what's the new guideline? I'm like, I'm trying to still understand this. We need to learn very fast. Because if we don't do all that, you're not going to get that psychological, engagement with your people. Because it's a different world from the world that we were in 20 years ago. So can HR be the leaders? the only hero? No. And I'm going to talk about leadership now, very quickly, on leadership. So leadership can either grow or destroy your team. Okay? And employee alignment is so important because if you look at that, not just, okay, do your people come just to pay their bills, or do they go beyond? Not just contractually bounded to deliver, but because they are emotionally connected to the vision and purpose. Yesterday, there was a speaker who talked about vision and purpose. I think when the lady from Unilever was presenting, I think that topic was at the back. And it talks about vision and purpose. Okay? My son, who is, I've got two sons. One is 25-year-old, who's already working, and the second one who's doing first year. And he says, Mommy, I don't want to work like you. I don't want to travel 1 hour in KL. I travel 45 kilometers to go to work one way. We're lucky to have good roads, but still it takes us 1 hour because of traffic jam. And my son says, I don't want to do that. The world has changed because it's wasting my time, right? So more and more, that whole connections and engagement is of a different meaning to the new generations. And so we need to rise up to that new demand. So there's some just examples which I got it from. I just Googled and said, okay, this is what you get. I think what's interesting about leaders, I'm now talking about leaders' role, yeah? Look at the one on Sir Alex Ferguson. He says, at the end of the game, you're going to be 6 feet away from the trophy, and that's the closest most of you will ever get to it. Don't you dare come back in here without giving 100%. So there are many kinds of leaders. He was, how many of you are Man United fans here in this room? Okay, some are, maybe they're not so willing to bring up because they're not doing so well now. So there are many kinds, right? But we know whatever kind it is, different companies, different company culture will have that leadership that sets the tone. And that is the one that will determine that psychological engagement that you have with your employee. Are you leading from confidence or fear? And I'm going to leave you very quickly on this fear-based leadership. If you Google, I got it. I use it a lot of times in the leadership program, but you can Google it, and I know it's rather small, but you Google it and see. These are used as a base whenever I talk to my leaders. When I say leaders, not just at senior management, at middle management as well, and say, where are they? If you are leading from fear, you can never get your employees to do anything beyond what they signed on the employment contract. Okay? And so, why? Because do you believe leadership has a huge impact? People don't leave organizations, right? People leave leaders. I like this table in front. They're very, very alert. They're like nodding, yeah, and all that. Right? Okay. Some pictures. Branding. Okay? So, of course, I work in AirAsia, so I want to show the AirAsia ladies. Mercedes has got a strong brand. At one time, BMW was taking over them. And then I don't know now, it's either BMW or Mercedes. But they kept on innovating because they wanted to keep the brand. AirAsia, the brief that was given to me by my CEO then was, you have to make sure that we create a culture that even by looking from far, the way our cabin crew walks and the way they carry themselves, without looking at their badge, you know that's AirAsia. Okay, that's how strong a brand is. I mean, it can also go the other way. I'm not sure whether we have many, but it's quite obvious I'm not for Trump. But, you know, do you remember what is his wife's name? Huh? Melanie, right? Melanie Trump. So she's such a pretty and elegant lady. But because at one time, not now, at one time, Trump had such a bad reputation. So whenever she is associated with Trump, the brand like dilute, her own branding dilute. So it's so important. And why do I bring this? Because your leaders hold the key to your employees, right? how much your employees deliver. And that also means that they hold the key to the brand of your company, which you have to help them, because otherwise, it will go the other way around. So I'm sure you have heard this. If you are very senior people or even middle, you would have seen this. This happens in a lot of training. We talk about the iceberg theory, right? Whatever you see at the top is what you see, but you don't see what is at the bottom. It's the bottom lined, invisible culture, invisible items that if you can actually connect very well with your people, that's when you win that psychological space with your people. Why is leadership important at every level? And why did I choose this picture? It's a post box of different colors. Because we do. The reality is we do have many different colors, different people. There's no right or wrong. But we need to ensure that the leaders at every levels are engaging our people at the level that we want, which is linked to the vision, which is linked to our mission, to our business plan, so that they can deliver that consistent brand experience that the company is doing. So then how can you support leaders? Some more pictures of me and my team. I think as a HR leader, you must role model. You must show the energy. You must show that you're passionate. Can you imagine if you are no energy, and then you come to work and like, and then I think in the past, and I'm sure everyone in this room is the modern transformational HR leaders. Yeah? Yes. Because some companies, the people don't go and see HR. You say, no, you go and see HR means you're in trouble. The police department, CPO, instead of chief people officer, chief police officer. So when they redesignated my title, I refuse to have CPO because I don't want people to call me chief police officer, although it is CPO, chief people officer, so I'm CHRO, although I think it should be people and culture, right? But I tell my team, Afiq, for example, I say, look, the more people come and see you, it means we're doing our job. It means that we are creating value creation. Because our role is not just to discipline, but to nurture and grow, okay? So we ourselves have to, be role modeling. Remember I talked about the UN SDGs? So if you look at the ones with the blue borders, that's where organizations and leaders and HR can play an impact on. Number 3, good health and well-being. We do that, right? I think today everyone's talking about wellness. The more you are concerned about the wellness of your employee, the more they are psychologically connected with you. Because they say, I'm not here to earn money. I'm here because I believe in this company. Number 4, quality education. Do you train? Do you invest? Do you grow them? Number 5, gender equality. Are you biased toward a certain gender? Or are you practicing DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion? Number 8, decent work and economic growth. Do you see only the top management that has really nice offices like a ballroom? And then the rest, poor fellows, are sitting in small? Or is it really across the board that everyone is given a nice working environment? Number 10, reduce inequalities. Number 11, sustainable cities and communities. And I say that is because if as an organization, we can do that at aggregate level, we actually contribute to that. So remember, I think everyone talks about ESG, right? You know what's ESG, right? And the S component of ESG, environment, social, and governance, I mean, such a big fashionable thing to be talking about, but it's really doing it and linking what you do. Leaders rally their people and take them on a business journey. The energy they exude must couple with planful intent, which means you look at the colorful balls. Basically, in reality, employees are very colorful, very different personalities, different backgrounds. But how do you bring them together? And we walk this journey because we have a common goal. That's the rule. and think about it, your role and how to help your leaders to do this, because your leaders are like these marbles, colorful marbles too. Some are good, some are not so good, some are very strong characters, and some are very people person. I've had leaders who are very people person, but too loose. That's not good as well. Power of conversation. I think yesterday, one of your speakers also talked about it. I think when you talked about creating a psychology space where employees are connected is when they feel they can express their views, when they feel that they can be transformed on a transformational journey, and that's when conversation happened. Because when you don't have conversation, and the only conversation you have is WIP. You know what's WIP, right? Work in progress. I'm like, oh my God, no, boss going to talk about me. Has it done? You know, Sunday night, boss sends the message. Has it been done? No. But really, real conversation. Intentionally listening to your people. And HR has a big role to play. I'm focusing on HR because I've made to understand, 80-90% of people in this room are HR. Okay? Storytellers, you have to be a storyteller. Because if you don't tell the story of what your company is going to achieve, you're not going to make it. You're not creating any value because your job is to connect the dots. Defining authentic leadership. Now, I have to run. I got 8 minutes, but I got a few more slides to go in. So, Mr. Mohan says it's okay. You can go on. Okay. I told Shahima I can speak the whole day, but defining authentic leadership. I'm bringing Mr. William Wallace. In that movie, he's called William Wallace again. Lead with purpose, lead with God. If you read all that, you can imagine in your mind who are the characters in your office, right? Who are traditional leaders or who are authentic leaders. You can just imagine, right? Can you? Like, oh, I know this person is that traditional. Oh, I know this person is that, authentic leadership. This movie. So now, if you have not watched this movie, go and watch this movie. I use this every time in my leadership program because that was a snapshot from, they call it the inspirational. You look at it, if you watch the movie, actually they lost the war. But what can a leader do and convince? They knew they were going to lose the war, but the spirit was there. But the point here is about the leader who actually inspires and engaged the people. They didn't have the technology to win the war against the English because they were better resourced. But they were inspired, they were emotionally connected. They go beyond because they had a leader who inspired them. Remember the slide I showed before? The leader has to rally. And most time you've seen in history, when that happens, victory happens. Oops, sorry. So be clear about your purpose, your role, whom you serve, be driven by values, be authentic. Just summarizing what I just said in the previous slide. And I know I'm focusing on the leaders now, but think about it and reflect what is your role and how you can help the leaders. Leaders need to be relevant and agile. I use the word relevant because I have so many leaders who are not being relevant. I'm sure many of the young ones here would agree with me. When you have leaders who still expect you to be at the workplace from morning till evening, when you actually can have flexible work arrangement, when you have technology that can help you. Flexible, work from home kind of thing. I'm not sure how it is like in Nepal, but I'm definitely sure, at least that lady who is from Unilever, I'm sure Unilever practices that, right? And many of you would have also already practiced that flexibility. When I started working, there was no Wi-Fi. So there was no laptop. Now you know how old I am, right? I think those can relate to me. So you know you cannot go home and do your work. You haven't finished you have to do it at the big computer with the green, that green font still, and finish it. But today, you can go home and do your work. And the younger generation, they want to be empowered. They want to make sure that they are given the choices, because people talk about personalization, the choices to do their work the way they want to do and how they want to do it, right? So be flexible is important. And so let's look at the story of Afiq. So I'm coming towards the end. Bear with me. So this is Mr. Afiq who's here with us. You've got to empower your people to make sure the job is challenging and fun. So if anyone, and you get a chance to talk to him, he'll tell you what is his core role actually. His job is actually manager for HR operations. He always tells me, I have the most boring job because I have to take care of car fleets. I have to take care of problems, industrial relations and all that. So in my team, I have this thing called 70-30. 70-30 concept where you kind of like have your core job. This is analogical. He does 70% of his time, his core job, and 30% I get him to be involved in projects. We have a lot of projects, and sometimes he's a chief in the project, or sometimes he's just a member. It happens with everybody else in the team, so we do a lot of engagement activities like as the International Women's Day, he was involved. His strength is actually in videography and all that. So he was involved. In fact, this morning he was still finishing it. We have so many things that we push out this month. One of the last thing for today is the last day of IWD, March, is the Stories from the Heart. So he was the guy who arranged for all the videos of our employees to be videotaped and so on. So we do it internally. Unlike all these professionals that are there, right? Because he has that strength. And that gives colors to his job. So this is some of the pictures like you can see there. The one in the middle where he's standing is one of those huddles that we have. So whenever we have our engagement work, it's actually led by talent development. He's not under that team, but because his strength and passion is in that, and he can stand in front and talk to many people in a big group confidently and with enthusiastic, because he enjoys doing that. I then let him into those projects rather than just looking at cars and looking at problems when, industrial relations issues and so on. And what I also do is, you can see that picture with me. Okay, by the way, we wear the name tag, right? In the one, myself down there in the blue jacket. There's another lady there, Leanne. So I buddy up. So in my team, I believe in having a diverse team. So not everybody's from HR background. Some are from engineering, some are from marketing, because I like to have that different perspectives. Some are very good in our local language, some are very good in English. So Afiq is very strong in our local language. We have people who are very good in English but not strong in the local language. So what I do is I pair him with another person who's very good in English, but that person is not good in our local language, so that they both learn from each other. So there is cross-fertilization. Okay? And then of course, gives him the opportunity. I remember 6 years ago when I first came in, he's that skinny, young, I sometimes forget how young he was. He was in the 20s. Now, maybe I won't tell how old is he. Only Nadiah will tell her age, right? Very nervous, when I had the one-on-one. When I asked them to stay in front, they were like, oh, do I have to do? But today is no issue. Practice makes perfect. And giving them that guidance and so on. Okay, I know. Yeah, I've got just a few flights. But maybe I'll just take this opportunity to let him share a little bit, not more than 3 minutes, his own personal journey, because I would like you to hear some real story rather than just me telling you, and it might not be true, right?
Thank you, Nadiah, for the opportunities. Namaste and good morning, everyone. My name is Afiq, so I'm the one who in front of the screen. So basically, my journey is a little bit tough because have you heard before Nadiah explained to all of you, which is I started my career as executive in office administration. To go through that journey as a HR person, so I'm using the 70 and 30 concept, which is 70 I focus on my core job, and 30% basically I'm focused on projects. So basically it's a little bit tough because of you need to balance it out, right? 70% you need to focus on the core job because that's one your KPI, my KPI, right? If let's say I fail to do that, so means that I not receive any bonus, for sure my performance will be a little bit low, right? So that journey for 6 years journey is a little bit tough. Nadiah called me as a FOMO person. FOMO person? Fear of missing out. Fear of missing out. I'm the one who, what kind of discussion that you talk about in the meeting? So can I join the discussion? So I'm that kind of person. So because I want to learn something. And she invited all the HR person to be here, but for sure we need to sacrifice, especially on our money, right? So I spent 72,000 Nepal rupee to come here. To come here. It's not a free accommodation. And then for sure for the hotel, because of my birthday last month, so she's not giving anything to me, so she needs to pay lah. So basically as a leader, I learn a lot from Nadiah, especially, right? So I just want to end this kind with the quotes, which is I grab these quotes and hold these quotes very tightly. Before we become a leader, right? Before we become a leader, success is all about ourselves, right? When we become a leader, success is about growing others. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Yes, he is FOMO. If I don't tell him 3 minutes, he'll go on, right? And then the organizer is going to scold me. But yes, it's true. He has grown leaps and bounds. He went through, because in Malaysia, I guess it's similar in Nepal, we all have different background, different tracks. So he went and finished his university studies in the local U. Unlike me, I went overseas, and my mom was an English teacher, so English was quite a first language for me. So when we started, he didn't speak as well as it. It's not that it was bad, but what I wanted to say was, I spend time to coach them, and I really want to see them. I always say, I want all of you to be a top notch when I'm 70 years old, 80 years old, hopefully I'm still alive. I want to be proud and say, well, Afiq, the CHRO or whichever company, was actually working with me when he was younger. So it's all about nurturing and making sure. And I know people have offered him. Actually, I have an active Instagram, which I'll share my, so every time I will post a lot about my team. And so many people ask me, aren't you afraid that you will lose your team? Because there are my counterparts who calls him and all others of my staff and offer them jobs. And I always tell him, it's fine. Think about what's good for you because I think you know what's best. But I always say to all leaders, my job as a leader is to ensure that I make sure that everyone who works with us want to stay with us. Psychological connection, right? Not just the money. But the onus is on us to make sure that we retained and we make sure that people stay on with us. And so that is so important. So that's the story of Afiq, and I'm really proud of him. He's really grown tremendously, and he actually invests with his own investment to even enhance his level of English through British Council and so on. So it's all about, I keep telling everyone, coaching is one thing, but you got to impress upon everyone that development is also something that you want to invest in yourself. That should be the narratives that you go with your people. Okay, I have one video to show when we talked about organizationals. Is it okay if I go a little bit more time? Yeah. This is a video on something that we've done for our wellness week, so that you get a feel of. That's our convention center, so we build convention centers as well. So every year, around October, September, we have annual wellness program across the group. So you see the different business units.
One, two. You guys want the music louder? I think we should go louder. Put the music even louder. 3, 2, 1.
This year, our theme is on you, me, and us. Because what we're saying is that at work, when you are healthy and fit mentally and have good relationship, then you can become a very productive team.
Restructure, bro. Restructure. Focus! Yes! Focus! Yes!
So you can see from annual dinner, which is a big thing, thank you, to wellness, to, we had a few other activities. And thank you, that was actually all collated by Afiq. So he's our CEO, Chief Entertainment Officer guy, right? Thank you so much, namaste. And sorry I took in a longer time.
Thank you so much, Nadiah, for that wonderful, beautiful, and a colorful presentation. I'm sure those of us who are slogging today, it's a end of the week, a Friday morning, and maybe for us it's an end of work, but those colorful presentations and pictures really livened up our spirits this morning. Nadiah, there will be 2 questions that we want to ask the audience or the participants to ask, if I may, because the presentation was a bit long and colorful and also very clear. We could understand so many things. If there are questions from the audience, from the participants, 2 questions will be entertained this morning, and then we move ahead with further with our program. So if anybody is ready with a question. Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Hello, ma'am. That was really wonderful listening to you with so much passion and energy. I have one question, short question for you. From the very starting of my career, I have been hearing from so many people give the feedback, like being the HR person, HR leader, you should not be so friendly. People will not take you very seriously, right? So many people keep on telling that to HR leaders. So what's your opinion on this, ma'am?
Well, that was true maybe 20 years ago, but not anymore. As you can see, I've showed how the demand and expectations of employees have changed. I think you should remember that chameleon picture that I showed. You must always be approachable because, look, HR, we're there to look after people, right? But you have to be firm. So I have many instances where I said, no, I even sometimes disagree with my CEO because I need to be loyal and you need to be loyal to your professional HR function, right? Because you cannot just sit there. And I always say that it's a moral obligation because when you move someone from another place to another or even promise a new job, it's not just that person, it's affecting that person's family. So my answer to you, that was 20 years ago when the world had no Wi-Fi, no laptop, and everything else was different. We have to move on. I think I'm relearning, I'm reinventing myself. A lot of reverse mentoring is happening. Even with Afiq, for example, I say, to the point that sometimes I say, can you please teach me how to do this, right? And it's like, no, we're not going to teach you because maybe then you won't have anything else to offer to you. Just kidding. But, so long story short, just be who you are. Remember, service for the people. Okay?
One more question, please, and then we move forward. Yes, sir.
I know there are 3 questions. I'm going to be here the whole day, so you can catch me afterwards.
Hello. Thank you, ma'am, for the wonderful session. So I took a lot of things from your session. But as earlier, ma'am said, my employees, or my staff, or my teams are still afraid of an HR. They are not so friendly with an HR because they think then if you talk freely with HR, if you get close with HR, the things that they are saying about the management team, about their compensation packages, they take that things to the management. So how can we meet the employees' expectations that are untold?
Okay, yeah. So the keyword is balance. And so I always say that when you do a HR work, remember, you're a very important person. So sometimes whenever we say as HR, they take it as that's the mother of everything else. And say, oh, Afiq from HR said this. Although you actually had a lunch conversation, right? And so sometimes you say, nobody wants to go lunch with you because they're worried and like, oh my God, whatever they're going to say, you're going to make a judgment. So you have to play the right role. So in my job, I even have people's wives calling me, checking on their husbands, yeah? So to me, I say whatever happens at work is at work. And I think we need to know where is the line. And you don't need to report everything, but use that as a important intel about what's happening on the ground. You'd be surprised that whatever you hear, if you sit only in your office, is very different on what's real on the ground. So it's very important for HR to go out. So when I first joined Satir, my style is I go everywhere. I don't just sit there and have lunch with the top management, you know. I think they all have this special table. I said, no, but I walk around because that's when you know what's real. Because our job is about solving real issues. So balance and make sure that you don't breach the trust of your friends, your employees, and your management. So I don't know how to tell you, but you need to know where the balance is. I think if you think that there's an important intel that you've got, if you were to bring it up, do not mention the name of the person because you may actually put the person into trouble. And the next thing you know, don't go out with him. He's going to tell everything. Yeah? I hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your questions to both the members of the audience. Thank you, Nadiah, for that wonderful presentation. And thank you, Afik. Such wonderful videos, and I relate to it because I also come from a media background, and I've worked many, many years in making and producing such videos, so it was so well connected. I loved your transitions and the mood of the whole video. Thank you so much. We enjoyed the presentation, and Nadiah's presentation took me back to my days in Delhi, where I worked for a similar kind of office. We had the same kind of environment, and you know, the boost, the energy that we received every day, it was like, even on weekends, I wanted to go to work. So that's the kind of environment I come from. And she really highlighted on the point that HR plays an important role in, you know, unifying the office, creating that mood, and giving them the much-needed boost. One more word for Nadiah. We also have bungee jumping here in Nepal. There are two important places if you want to. Well, you are here till Sunday, so maybe you could plan a bungee jump and, you know, test your resilience skills and your bravery once again. Thank you so much. Moving on with the NEO HR Meet 2023 in association with Cyber Sathi, we have to move on with the program. That was a wonderful presentation. At this moment, I would like to call upon Samjana ma'am to kindly come forward and present Nadiah with a token of appreciation. Thank you so much, and I would like Nadiah to accept this token of appreciation from all of us here at the HR Meet 2023. And at this point, I'd also like to thank Afik for, you know, really sacrificing a lot and, you know, coming over on his personal expenses and doing so much. I think that's the passion we all need at the moment. Thank you so much.